Alright guys, it's just a video of what we did in class the other day, so if you missed or if you just forgot and need a refresher, here's all the vocab. This is called linear correlation. Okay, what we're doing is finding regression equations, and regression equations is a study between two variables. Correlation, strength and direction, so you can see 5 graphs of different types of correlations. Okay, the closer the points are together, the stronger the correlation is, the further apart, the weaker. Then you have positive sloping correlations or negative sloping correlations. Okay, we're going to find a correlation coefficient, which is just a number that tells us how strong something is. Closer that number is to 1, the better the correlation is. If it's a negative correlation, it would be closer to -1. Closer to 0, the worse it is. Okay, and then we're going to find lines of best fit that we can use to make predictions of data. All right, so we're going to go through this problem. We're going to do it in the calculator. I'm going to walk you through the calculator steps again, and we'll be making some predictions as we go. All right, so first thing we need to do is type all of these values into our calculator. So we're going to pull up. This is one thing you have to do in documents. So if you go to the home page, new document, number 1. Okay, and we're going to add a list and spreadsheet. That's how you type stuff in. Okay, and then you have to label your lists. So our labels are years, and then sales. Okay, make sure you don't type anything in the second row with the equal sign. You have to leave that blank, otherwise it'll mess it up. Okay, our years go from 2010 to 2015. All right, and our sales numbers, I have to go back and check these. 31.2 and 34.6. $18.6 and 37.7. And 41.3 and 45.1. All right, now that we have all the data in there, we want to tell the calculator to find a line of best fit and the correlation coefficient. Okay, and in fact, that's what they asked us to find in letter A. Find a regression equation, that's the line of best fit, and a correlation coefficient. All right, so to do that, we go to menu. We're going to go to statistics, stat calculations, and linear regression. There are 2 options here. We are going to use the mx plus b because that's the equation that we're familiar with. Okay, this menu pops up. If you hit the center button of the trackpad, a drop-down menu shows up, and for our x values, we want years to be our x value. So click year, and then arrow down. Okay, and then we want sales to be our y value, so click sales. Okay, notice that it's saving our equation in F1. We'll want to remember that for later. And then if we go down to the bottom, it's going to paste our results into column C. Okay, as long as that's not going to overlap with one of your data that you've already plugged in, then you're good. Our data was only in column A and column B, so pasting it in column C is perfect. All right, so scroll down one more time, hit OK. And there's all of our data. Title, linear regression, mx plus b. Tells us the equation is mx plus b. Tells us what m is. Remember, m is your slope. So 3.11 if we round it off. B is your y-intercept, negative 6,215.5. R squared is nothing that we're going to talk about, so you can ignore that. R is the correlation coefficient, so you do need to know that one. Regular R, correlation coefficient, 0.625. All right, and then the last one are residuals. We don't do that in this class. You'll learn about those in stats if you take stats. So let's write down our equation. We have y equals 3.11x minus 6,215.5. Then our correlation coefficient was 0.625. All right, letter B, use the equation to predict. This is huge. This is why we do this sort of thing, is so we can make predictions. 2028. All right, so 13 years after this table ended, what are our sales going to be if this trend continues? Okay, so basically 2028 is a year, which means it's an x value. So I can plug that in for x in the equation, and it should come out to be whatever the sales are going to be in that year. So 3.11 times 2028 minus 6,215.5. Okay, now in the old days, we just type that into the calculator and we get an answer, but it was never as precise as us math people like it to be, because we rounded off the slope. Okay, this number got rounded off, even though we didn't round it ourselves. The calculator rounded it when it showed it to us in that cell. Okay, so that means our numbers are going to be off, and especially when we're dealing with big numbers like this, a little bit of rounding goes a long way when you're multiplying and stuff like that. So to avoid rounding, we're going to use our calculator. So we're going to have to add a new page. To do that, you press Control Doc. We're going to add a calculator page. This is where you do all the normal calculations. Okay, and remember I told you to remember where it's going to save our equation. It saved our equation as F1. So we're going to type in F1 parentheses, and then where you put in the parentheses whatever number they asked you to plug in. So in our case, that's 2028. Okay, you hit enter, and the calculator would use the exact equation that it found, not a rounded off version. So this answer is as precise as we can get. Okay, no rounding was involved. And we can do that because the calculator saved our equation in that F1 and allowed us to. Okay, so really cool that it lets us do that. So $82.89 million. Okay, we are still rounding our answer, so it's use a little wavy equal sign to show that it's approximately this much, not exact. All right, letter C says remove the outlier. An outlier is a data point that's just like way off from all the rest of them. So if you look in the table over there, looking at the sales values, there it looks like there's one that's just kind of way different than all the rest. 2012 is looking very low. That's almost half of the next closest one. Okay, so if we just remove this one, we'll probably get a line that's a lot better and an equation that is a lot closer to the true value. So let's scroll back to our previous page. If you press Control left arrow, it'll scroll back to the first tab, and then we'll just scroll over to 2012 and delete it. You'll see our equation changed over here. Our slope is now 2.6. Our y-intercept is 5,187.76. Our new correlation coefficient is 0.986. All right, let's write all that down. Y equals 2.6x minus, forgot what that was, 5187.76. And our new correlation coefficient is 0.986. All right, it wants us to use this new equation to predict the sales in 2028 again. Okay, so let's go back to our calculator page and do the F1 again. It should have automatically changed F1 to our new equation as well, so we don't have to do anything. Okay, in fact, we don't even have to type it again. If we just arrow up and hit enter, it'll copy it down here, and then we hit enter again. And sure enough, it did change the equation for us because it's now adjusted our prediction from 82.89 to $77.97 million. All right, again, wavy equal sign because it is still approximate. We are still rounding our answer off a little bit, but it's a lot more precise than it would have been had we plugged it into that rounded off equation. Okay, letter E says compare the correlation coefficients. First one was 0.625. Second one's 0.986. Okay, which one is stronger? Okay, remember, closer to 1, the stronger the correlation. 0.986 is very, very close to 1. That's going to be a much stronger correlation. So what do you think that means about the prediction? Okay, the prediction should be much more accurate with a stronger correlation than a weaker one. Okay, so our prediction should be much, much stronger than it was before with the 82. All right, one more thing I want to show you in the calculator, how to view your data on a graph. Okay, we're going to add one more page, Control Doc. We're going to add a data and statistics page. That's number 5. Okay, so there are points right there. If you rub your finger along the trackpad, a mouse will show up like this. Okay, and then you just track it down to here and click. And this is our x-axis, so year should go on our x-axis. And then you track it over to the y-axis and click, and sales goes on the y-axis. Plot your points for you just like that. And you can also view the line of best fit going through those points. If you go to Menu, Analyze, Regression, and then Show Linear. Again, we're doing the MX plus B version instead of the other one, so number 1. Okay, it shows our equation. It puts the equation up there, so it should match with the other one that we had, which it does. That's good to see. All right, now I believe that if we go back to page 1 and put that outlier back in, we can even see our original data. Okay, so this one was 2012 and 18.6. So it changes our equation back to the original one, and if we scroll back over to page 3, you see that it puts that line back down where it was.